went China and all of that, and managed to try at least to pull this thing off. So it comes as disappointing news, but it also makes me feel that we have to enhance efforts. It will begin at, I suppose, at the recruiting stage. It will begin at the community stage too, because it's from the community that we get policemen to come into the force. And value systems have to be changed. Parenting. It's a huge, complex social thing that will have to be done. It is not that, because the police force is but a microcosm of your society. And that is what we'll have to do. Better the society and you better your recruits. Better your society and you better your police force. And so educationally, socially too, culturally, so many things we have to enhance and do better and improve. And that is when I think we're going to get it.
What can you tell us about these special task force set up to deal with noise nuisances, especially when it comes from loud bars and these different things?
Yeah, well, that is why it was set up, because of those complaints. And they're coming in by the hundreds now. Again, it is our society's negativity. People know that when they play the music loud, they affect others. But some of them do it thinking that, they don't have any other care in the world. We seem not to appreciate the rights of others and the obligations on the part of ourselves. And that is what is creating all these negatives. The noise nuisance. I have gotten complaints from some old people, school children, and that is why we decided to create this task force, take a look back at the laws, take a look at the assets that we have, the decibel meters to read, because when we go into the trials in the courts, we are losing a lot of these noise nuisance cases because the magistrates are asking, how loud was the noise? And when the policeman says loud, how loud is it? And there's no gauge or kind of a mechanism to test it, whether it's 3 decibel, which is what the magistrates are looking for, complicates the cases. So we now have to get better assets, and we are in the process of getting those, and also to do some public awareness. People must know that if it's like a wedding house or any other thing, a party that they have, please make your music, but do it at a reasonable level of sound, not to disturb neighbors and disturb the community around.
How soon can action start be taken against persons who might not adhere to the noise nuisance law?
Well, it will be almost immediately. The task force is also going, because we still have the police force that will enforce the laws, and we intend to take a little tougher approach on people who play these music systems loud to be bothering other community members. And we have some powers, even if we have to amend the powers of taking away the instruments and all of that, being more strict in our law enforcement. But expect that it will be almost immediately.
And finally, the stray catching unit, their part in preventing traffic accidents. We know in recent time they had persons run into cows and died and stuff. What is their part then?
Well, they're continuing to do the good work, but what we have had recently is an exhortation by the Prime Minister who went up Babis, and a lot of the cattle in the backlands of Blackbush Polder have to be brought out because of the floods. And we have asked the stray catcher department that we have here in the ministry to go easy on those cattle farmers, because they have to bring out their cattle. They're dying. I understand a couple hundred of the cattle have died in the flooded regions back Blackbush. So they have to bring them out to highlands and for a place where they will get food, and that means coming out into the front lands, and some will get stray on the road and so on. So we are trying to be lenient with them, and to that extent then I am pleading with drivers, be a little more careful. If a driver be careful, they're not going to be accident with an animal. And sometimes you want to know who's the real animal, if it's the driver or the cow. So it is important that drivers behave like humans, and the cow will always behave like a cow.
And but persons with animals, especially on the East Coast and these places have animals going across the vehicles and all these different things, what is your call to them?
My call to them is to take care of your animals. But I could understand in this wet weather It's a little difficult. And so we all have to give a little. We all have to take a little. Because that's how the society is going to be run. Let's be reasonable. That's all we're asking. And behave like civilized people. So yes, we're going to ask the the farmers and the animal owners to make sure that their animals do not stay on the road, get it off the road as quickly as possible. But even drivers, when you see that and know the nature of the times, that there will be some more animals on the road, take your time, be careful, be cautious, be caring.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner, it must be very embarrassing, especially in this month, that elements of the force would have been fingered in this incident of Tuesday, that failed bank robbery. Could we have some comments from you in that regard?
It's certainly undesirable. The force has geared itself for many years, maybe throughout its existence, to deal with unprofessional behavior. That is, for that reason, we have residential training for recruits, so you change attitudes and so on. Our own system of surveillance, that disciplinary system that runs right down to first line supervision, right down to management. And a lot of training in rules and behavior and so on is done. However, as Minister said, it's a human condition. What is the reason that a man who has every foundation for a big, bright future go in and take those risks that they took there? Similarly, with these ranks, they are both junior ranks. One of them, I think, from the regular force has about 3 years or less than 3 years service. And it's a scenario presented to them, and that looks good. And therefore they take the chance, and certainly there was no experience in that. What about the what ifs? And so the thinking there is something that looked bright and easy, and they went for it. We do a lot of training to resist those temptations and all other temptations. But unprofessional behavior is something that we treat with from the top to the bottom of the organization. And it's a major concern for us.
Without prejudicing the investigation, based on initial information you guys received, how did they get involved? How did they come about getting involved in this plot?
Well, they both knew other elements involved, and they were approached. It's a question of not only saying no, I'm not involved, but influencing them against this thing.
Did they say how long this was in the making, and were any of the weapons recovered registered to the Ghana Police Force?
No, none of the firearms recovered weren't registered to the force. And if we talk about how long they planned and so on, we're getting into evidence.
Some may argue, you talked about training to resist temptation of these kinds. Some may argue that it could have been the pay grade of these officers made them go to this way. What would you say to Gordon?
I am saying if poor people, because of the little that they get, resort to crime, we wouldn't have been surviving here. Because we live in a country that a lot of poor people, check what percentage of them are criminals.